Hey there, I'm Colin Weston, host of the Mod Golf Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. My guest now is Chris Kallmeyer, who is the co-CEO of Golf Genius Software. I've had the pleasure of having his co-CEO, I guess you can say, his partner in crime. That would be Mike Zisman on the show a couple of years ago. And I love what they're doing and find it really fascinating with not only startup companies, but in this case, scale up companies, because they have traction with Golf Genius software, and find how they innovate, how they keep looking forward, how they see new opportunities and how they get there. Mike and I had, excuse me, not Mike and I, Chris and I had a great conversation on our audio long form podcast, which I really encourage you as viewers to go back and listen to. I'll include the link down below for that, because we're going to have a different conversation here, because otherwise, why would you go back and listening to what we already are talked about here? So definitely different conversation, different questions, and a different take on things. So to get started, there he is, going to get Chris on here to say, Chris, good to see you again. And thanks for joining me again on the Mod Golf Podcast.
Colin, it's great to be here. I really love these conversations.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So, hey, we talked about where Golf Genius was even a couple of years ago, kind of the origin story, how you came on board, your connectivity to golf, all those good things. So let's focus on the here and now and also on the future. And one thing I wanted to talk about out of the gate here, you talked about this as far as kind of adding rocket fuel to your business, rather than creating everything yourself, which could take a lot of resources and a lot of time and money, to then partner with others and also to acquire. I learned this early on in my entrepreneurial startup journey. This analogy of, rather than creating the railroad yourself or cutting down the trees and making the ties and laying the tracks and then building the engine and putting the coal in and getting the fire going and getting it moving, it's like they said, well, instead, why don't you actually just create a really nice hook, go stand beside an existing railway with a really fast train going by and hook yourself onto that train. And in your case, the fast train has been the USGA along with some others. We talked about that good stuff. But the other thing I wanted to touch on here, Chris, is acquisitions. And you've got a couple in the hopper that you can't talk about because NDAs, and you're still developing that. But talk to us about with Golf Genius software. Well, first, for our viewers here, why don't you actually tell them what Golf Genius software does and why you do it? And then can you then segue into these acquisitions that you've made, how that complements what you already do and the strategy behind that?
Sure, I'll try to keep that pretty brief, but folks will know us for our original and core product, our tournament management product, which is used by public courses, private clubs, resorts, golf associations, and tours in over 60 countries. And it's used to run golf tournaments. So if you are a golf professional or a tournament director and you run organized competitions, whether it's a friendly competition with handicaps or a serious competition, of really talented golfers, you need to be able to run that tournament start to finish, from promoting it, getting people signed up, getting people organized on the golf course, recording the results, leaderboards, and a bunch of other things. And we are that toolbox for anybody that runs an organized golf tournament. We have since grown our business into other areas. We are the technology behind the centralized handicap system here in the US, which most people would know under the USGA brand as GIN. So we're the development organization that works closely with the USGA to build and host and maintain and improve that. And we also have a product called Golf Shop, which we offer to golf professionals to help meet some unmet needs in a golf shop operation. We're building some other products around coaching. So this is how we're evolving our business. But that's just as a way of background. So Colin, just to bring it back to your question, why don't you pick it up again and get me back on track?
Absolutely. I did one of those classic things as a host of asking 5 questions at once here rather than stacking them one at a time. So that's on me. I do apologize for that. So the question I asked then, after you gave us a nice succinct background of the business model and what you do at Golf Genius Software, and that is the acquisition side. Now that you are expanding your service and your product offerings, you're now looking strategically at and I believe you mentioned off camera before that you've already made 5 or 6 acquisitions. So why don't you tell us about one? And I'm very curious also to hear the why behind that, where you actually saw where it was adding value, how it complemented what you were doing, and yeah, well, why don't you start with that?
Yeah, sure. With acquisitions, and you also had that metaphor of hooking on to the train. Let me go back to that briefly, just to finish answering your earlier question, that hooking onto the train, and I'll come back to acquisitions. So the big train that we hooked onto in 2017 was the USGA. We white labeled our tournament management product, and through the USGA and their relationships with allied golf associations and clubs all over the US and in a few other countries, we distributed that USGA branded, essentially white labeled version of our tournament product to thousands of clubs. And that was really important. Your analogy of hooking on to a moving train is very good. It was beneficial to the USGA and to the community because we were delivering a better product, but it was also, of course, beneficial to us. So that just goes to answer your question about how to draft off of something else rather than trying to build everything organically, which then leads into your point about acquisitions. So in the last, we've been around since 2009. We started to grow pretty quickly and accelerate in 2017. In 2020, we did 5 acquisitions. Last year we did a 6th acquisition, and we're always looking for what are the other really interesting businesses out there that align with our strategy, align with the things that we really value, whether that's tournament competitions, which we're really strong in, or coaching, or other areas, for example, around golf shop operations. What are the ways that we can serve PGA professionals, help them save time, deliver great experiences, enhance their revenue? Those are the lenses that we're using to look at things. So back to 2020, we did 5 acquisitions. 4 of them were other tournament management products, 2 in the US, 2 in Canada, each of which had, a varying number of clubs as customers, anywhere from 100 to about 500. And that was just a way for us to say, we know we had the market leading product in the tournament management vertical. We know there were some other products out there, good products with good customers. And we felt like there was, synergy in terms of acquiring those businesses and bringing our product into those customer bases and helping them move forward with the solution that they have. So that was the first 4. The 5th one was in the coaching space that helped to get us started on understanding unmet needs for PGA professionals as teachers, complementing the rich variety of tools that they already have at their disposal, and understanding how we can add value in a unique way to help PGA professionals. The most recent one, just last month, was Twilight Golf Association, which is a service primarily for public facilities, also semi-private clubs. Anyone who wants to run a golf league, anyone who recognizes that adding a weeknight 9-hole league, let's say every week for 9 weeks, they recognize there's a lot of value in doing that, bringing new golfers to their facility, golfers who may return and be returning customers, regular customers at that facility. Leagues help build social fabric and help enhance F&B revenue, golf shop revenue. So these facilities, again, primarily public facilities, understand that leagues are a valuable thing. And oftentimes they would like to add a league, but they don't have the personal bandwidth at a staffing level to create, promote, and manage a weekly league. And that's where Twilight comes in. So Twilight is an offering, a managed service offering for any public facility or semi-private club who's interested in creating a 9-hole weekly league, but they don't want to incur the overhead of running it. And Twilight delivers a great service, a great experience that benefits the club, great golfer experience, and really meets an unmet need in that regard.
Got it. So with regards to acquisition, I want to kind of dig into this a little bit more. Some of the work that I do is with entrepreneurs, with coaching, mentoring, involved in pitch competitions, starting to dabble into angel investing. And a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in that early stage, when I ask, well, what's your exit strategy? What do you see yourself once you grow this thing, if you have that good fortune? And a lot of them are like, well, no, we're just going to keep building this into this multi-million-dollar company without thinking, well, the real opportunity could be, and investors want this, is like, well, what's the end game on this? So with them just getting the lights on that, to align yourself with perhaps a bigger company that then can plug and play what you're doing. It complements their offerings already. So I wanted to ask you this in regards to my comment there is, how do you go about finding and vetting with due diligence potential companies to be acquired, and what criteria do you use to decide once you meet them and start digging into it, whether that's something that is positioned for you to look at an acquisition?
Sure. It goes back to relationships and really understanding the space. We've been in the space long enough to, see what's happening in different aspects of golf. And we have a lot of great relationships that lead to other relationships. And we're learning about, products and services, not just here in the US, but all around the world. As I mentioned earlier, we're in over 60 countries. So part of what we're looking at is not just growing here in the US and Canada and North America, but also outside of North America. So again, we learn about those things through our own participation in the golf industry, but also through relationships that lead to other relationships. And that takes time to really understand what's out there and then get to know another business and determine whether there's a good potential fit. And a lot of times, a lot of things don't necessarily fit, even though they're great companies in and of their own right.
Yeah.
So that's how we find the opportunities. In terms of how we evaluate them, I think it's important to always evaluate them against our own strategy. So we have to start with a clear understanding of what our strategy is, and then align, other businesses, other possible acquisitions with that, and make sure that they are in fact aligned. We talked on the podcast, for example, that we really use a lens of competition plus coaching or teaching plus social, right? So if we can provide great or help golf professionals deliver great golf competition experiences, if we can help support their coaching of golf and learning golfers, learning golf in an effective way, and we can provide social opportunities. For example, I talked about Twilight Golf, of course, is a great social opportunity to create social fabric at public facilities. Those are the lenses that we're looking at. How can we find things that drive competition, create social opportunities, and enhance and create a foundation for better learning? Those are things that we're taking a close look at.
Got it. So, some great tips there for entrepreneurs that have an early growth company that perhaps they're looking at being acquired by someone larger than themselves. It is about relationships. And you touched on this earlier on the podcast. You talk about the importance of cultivating trust and consistency and delivering on that over time with your customers. And it sounds like the exact same works on the other side, building trust over time and relationships with potential partners when you're looking to acquire other companies.
And I would also add, in addition, on that side, there has to be a cultural fit, right? So those folks that are running their company, they have to be of the same, type of fabric as us, right? Because if they see the world a lot differently and they don't jive with who we are and don't see the world the way we see it, or it's going to be hard to work together, that it might be a perfect fit on the product side, but not a great fit on the culture side. So culture is also an important lens.
Right. So speaking about culture, you did talk in the podcast about, the future of golf or during the pandemic, and how important it is to be able to then work remotely, not only for yourselves, but also how with the culture of golf and people working at home and now used to that, how that freed up their recreational time and added to kind of the expansion of rounds played. So I want to bring this back to Golf Genius software. So with the culture, my conversation with Mike a couple of years ago, my understanding is half your staff, really the PGA professionals, are based in the US, and your development technical staff, for the most part, is based in Eastern Europe. I can't remember quite where, but perhaps you can talk about that. So how does that work? Sounds like you're already doing this virtual multi-time zone collaborative high performance way of working even before anybody needed to, before the pandemic. So can you talk about that, about the culture you have at the company and how you work with your remote teams?
Sure. So in terms of our footprint, we are 100% virtual, and we always have been. Today, we have nearly 60 full-time PGA professionals on staff. Again, and that's in roles like sales and account management and support. They are primarily here in the US, but we also have some folks in Canada, in Australia, in the UK, and elsewhere. So, we're big believers in PGA professionals, golf professionals, serving golf professionals, and that's a big part of our DNA, big part of our culture. And of course, those folks are all remote, and it works very well because they're serving folks in their geographic regions, and it's helpful for them to be in those regions. On the development side, we have 80 software developers, primarily in Romania, also some other locations. In fact, our software team has been built out of Romania since the beginning of the company in 2009 through a relationship that Mike created very early on, which has been really critical to our success. We have a tremendous team. I've been in software for 30 years, and it's the best team I've ever worked with. They're terrific, and we continue to grow. So that's a big part of it. Overall, we have about 140 people. So between the golf professionals and the developers, that's most of our staff. We're over 140 people worldwide, and a few other roles as well. So we're working remotely has always been part of our DNA, well before the pandemic, and we really were not affected in that regard at all because our culture was already accustomed to remote work. I will add that when you work remotely, you have to have other ways of building culture and building fabric within the company, and we do that a variety of ways. We have a company meeting every year in Philadelphia. We bring everyone together, chance to socialize and talk about the things that we're doing, where we're going as a company. We also meet in smaller groups throughout the year, and we have a variety of other ways that our teams get together, both here in the US and elsewhere. So that's a big part of the culture.
Got it. Now, I'm sure a global pandemic has thrown a wrench into being able to get together, but sounds like you still do. So I have to ask you this: when you get together in Philadelphia as the entire group, please tell me that you guys play a golf tournament. Considering what you do for a living, if you don't play a golf tournament together, like my head's going to explode here. So you come on, you have to have a golf tournament.
We do. We typically play on Sunday, the day before the meeting, and at the end, as get as many people participating as we can. And we'll play in a fun format. For example, of course, when we have so many PGA professionals, we have a lot of very good players. So we'll try to mix that up and have a fun format that everyone can enjoy.
Nice. But I'm sure it's a little bit competitive. So how have you done the last time you played? Come on, I have to get personal here.
Oh, goodness. I don't think I won. In fact, I'm certain I didn't. Otherwise, I'd remember it.
There we go. Hey, well, as we finish up here, you're talking about building relationships, cultivating trust, and a relationship that you've had. You can tell me when this actually happened. I think it was in the last year or so. But there's a certain professional golfer that everybody knows that I believe now is not only an ambassador, but I believe is also an investor with Golf Genius software. Can you tell us who that is?
That's correct. So Rory Mcilroy is an investor in Golf Genius. He became an investor about 18 months ago. It's been great to get to know Rory and his team. We got to know Rory through, earlier I talked about the value of relationships and, meeting other folks through our existing relationships. That's exactly what happened here. Through an existing relationship with Golf Channel, the folks around NBC, Universal Golf Pass, who we have a very good relationship with, introduced us to Rory Mcilroy, who's an ambassador with all of their programs. So of course, they have a great relationship. And that led to an outcome where Rory decided to invest in Golf Genius. And I think, as he would tell it, he invested in Golf Genius because it aligns with his brand and what he wants to see in terms of his image and his legacy. In particular, the idea of the great game of golf, traditional game of golf, moving ahead with technology, encouraging building social fabric, competitions, and all the things that help the game. And he felt that we were right at the center of that through our tournament product and the experiences we deliver through PGA professionals to golfers all over the world, and through the other things that we were doing to grow our business.
Love it. Well, I can keep going on here. I really could, but I want to keep it short here so that once again, so our viewers, I want to encourage them to become listeners, because we had this really engaging conversation, touched on so many other different topics, and how you're growing as a business continually innovating as a business. So we're not going to cover that here. Once again, I do encourage people to click on the link below and check that out with our long form audio podcast. So before we go here, Chris, perhaps you can tell our viewers here where they can learn more about Golf Genius software.
Yeah, you can take a look at our website, golfgenius.com. Talks all about how we serve PGA professionals, save them time, help them deliver exceptional experiences, generate more revenue. Talks about the different products that we have at the moment. And over time, we'll talk about new products that we're developing, and incorporating through our relationships.
Love it. Love it. Well, I've learned a ton here. You've you really put on a masterclass of how to constantly innovate. Don't kind of sit back on your heels and just hope that the product that you've created will last forever. Because as we know, with the blockbusters of the world out there, if you do that, you're kind of bit of a death sentence. You're sealing your own fate there. So I love that, and I've got a feeling that we're going to have another conversation in a couple of years' time, because you guys are always moving, always evolving, and the conversation is always engaging. So, Chris, thanks very much for joining me again on the Mod Golf Podcast.
Thanks, Colin. It's a pleasure.